ladies and gentlemen. I am Ivan Rodrigues, and it gives me great pleasure to welcome all of you to ACI Worldwide Presents the Economic Times Cards and Payment Summit 2019, this being the second edition. I now have the pleasure of introducing our keynote speaker for this summit, Phil Hazley, President and CEO, ACI Worldwide.
ACI has been in the quest. We've been in the business of real-time payments for almost 45 years. And a lot of people think of us in terms of our pioneering work we've done as it related to ATMs, because real-time payments actually began with ATMs. We've been a huge believer in the movement in the last 12, 13 years of immediate payments. And we were one of the major innovators that were involved in Great Britain. One Immediate Payments was first introduced in the globe. We had a wonderful visit to our newest strategic partner, who is MindGate, and their efforts as it relates to immediate payments in India, and it's actually broader than India, but India, I think, has been fantastic. We wanted to get into the market, and we could not see a better, more accomplished partner or a better way to do that. So we're very happy. We're a company that has had 1,000 people in India. We have 1,000 people helping us get our work. These people work on every product that we offer around the globe. And now adding the strategic combination with MindGate just makes us feel that we're current in all aspects of our ability to support the market from a real-time, immediate payment, any digital payment point of view. One of the things that we like about ACI is that we respect what everyone's trying to do in their own marketplace and whatnot. And one of our big roles is to provide the connectivity, connectivity in terms of a local or a national scheme, and let that scheme get the globality that it needs. I thank you, and I'm honored to be here. Thanks.
For the next address, titled Architecting Next Generation Financial Inclusion, Opportunities and Challenges for the State, it's my pleasure to welcome to the podium the chief guest for this summit, Shri Deepak Vasant Kesarkar, Honorable Minister of State for Finance, Planning and Home Rural Government of Maharashtra.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Economic Times Cards and Payment Summit is one of the most ambitious projects by the Times of India Group. As I understand, we have experts, innovators participating in this conference who have made a difference in the lives of common people and are transforming the way how people transact in our country. The government acknowledges that proper delivery of financial services is integral to the building of healthy economy. Though India has made a remarkable inroads in the financial sectors since independence, a lot more remains to be accomplished. It is of utmost importance to treat competent financial services delivery systems, one that provides high quality, easy access, and simplifies the banking and payment system. The need of the hour is for much larger contribution of all stockholders towards the common goal of an improved technologies, advanced delivery systems. The government of Maharashtra has taken many strategic initiatives to take banking and ease of payments to its every citizen, whether residing in urban or rural areas. The government promotes the digital mediums of banking and payments and have ensured that its people have easy and quick access to the government and other services. Today our efforts have made Nagpur the first city of India where all Gram Panchayats are digitally connected. Such large-scale breakthrough initiative has contributed immensely to the restructuring of financial and digital services in the hinterland of Maharashtra. Economic Times was always instrumental in bringing various sectors together to strengthen the economy of India. And I am sure all of you will participate in true spirit in this summit, and your summit will be useful for the development of this state and our country. Thank you. Thank you very much. Jai Hind, Jai Maharashtra.
And now for the special address titled Tapping into India's Digital Payments Revolution. It's my pleasure to welcome to the podium Kaku Nakate, President and Country Head, India, Bank of America.
Today, India's digital DNA is powered by India's stack comprising identity layer, followed by paperless layer, a payments layer, a tax layer, and a consent layer. I really take pride that in a short span of time, India has built a best-in-class, robust, low-cost, high-volume payment ecosystem, which is being astutely leveraged today by businesses to deliver varied financial services. The Reserve Bank of India has predicted a fourfold increase in the number of digital transactions from 2,069 crores in December 2018 to 8,707 crores in December 2021. At Bank of America, we continue to build a leading edge to enable our customers transact digitally and be their power to connect to what they would like to do in the financial world. Join us on our journey for digital payments. Thank you.
We now move on to a power-packed panel discussion titled The Cashless Indian Society, a Dream or a Myth? Manish, over to you.
Thank you. I think it's a very appropriate topic. So with that, Praveen, I wanted to take your views in terms of how do you see the cash on delivery and then the overall cash ecosystem that's for the larger Bharat.
So when we look at the digitally savvy population who actually use various e-commerce options to purchase various services or goods, and 70% of this really is fulfilled on a cash on delivery basis. So yes, we need to solve this, which is the digitally savvy population that is still relying on cash because there is a trust deficit that needs to be bridged. And on the other extreme is the financially excluded population. Now this population today has access to cards. The digital utilization to then make payments is not there. It's a cash out and then it is again cash in circulation being used. So the biometric, which is becoming a behavioral comfort, is one piece of research, in fact, that we've done recently. But if we can solve that piece, and if people can actually purchase fertilizer, receive their PDS benefit, get bus tickets and train tickets, just the usual day-to-day monthly purchases that need to be made, then that becomes a real game changer there.
So Murali, with respect to the target of 5 million POS by 2021, what are the opportunities and challenges do you see in taking to those numbers?
Honestly, where there's a will, there's a way. So if we've moved from 1.5 million to 4.5 million in 3 years, I think doubling this further to 9 million is also a likelihood if we all put our energy behind this in the next 3 to 4 years, is what I believe. There are 2 or 3 things that need to happen. I think the government needs to play a role in the form of giving incentives to the ecosystem. We as innovators need to focus on making sure that the friction is removed from digital transactions, and we have to make it economically viable for the participants in the ecosystem to really adopt digital payments and replace cash.
Ganesh, you have gone with the Airtel Payment Bank into the tier 5, tier 6 cities. So what opportunities do you see and challenges there?
The smartphone customer, I think, the entire piece around an open loop UPI QR, the cost of printing that is, maybe 20, 30 rupees. Deploying that is maybe an equal amount. It's put in the merchant's onboarded, and actually the transactions can start. And the beauty about that solution really is that, any customer having any payments app can actually use it and hence start transacting. To me, that is really, the way to go. A lot of us have started putting in significant investments behind that, and that is solving for the customer with the smartphone. The second part really is more than 500 million Indians having a feature phone we need to solve for. Here again, I think there's been a very, very brilliant solution called Aadhaar Pay, which has come from the NPCI stable, which really helps digitize rural India. And one of the investments which we would sort of be making, is to really make sure that there's a biometric device where the customer actually doesn't need to remember any PIN, any OTP, nothing. He or she just needs to give, his or her biometric fingerprint, and the transaction actually gets made in a very, very secure manner.
So, Sajid, what's the behavior of the people on the payment side of it in Google?
Digitizing payments is not just a metro phenomenon, but that it is one which is extending beyond that, right? And the fundamental aspect of getting to a cashless society actually depends not just on the distribution aspect of it, but to ensure that it's very safe and secure. And so if you can solve for trust, security, we'll be in a great place.
Sudipto, I think you have done a study on the consumer behavior on the payments part of it, and if you want to share in terms of what was the output.
I think the most important factor that came in our research is what deters payments. Cash is king in India, right? There's a huge friction to move to cash. And when we went to the small villages and small mofussil towns asking people, do you have a card? Yeah, I have a RuPay card. I have a Visa card. Do you use it? No, we don't use it. Right? Why don't you use it? Almost in 80-85% of the cases, the answer came saying that I'm not confident of using it. I have a fear of using it. So I think as an industry, the first job that we have is to dispel the fear of digital payments.
So from your perspective, Arjun, globally, there are a lot of innovations happen, and how do you see that innovation can be bring to India?
The infrastructure is in place. Now we need to go past that phase of creating the infrastructure to the next phase of getting customers to use it through a mix of financial incentives, removal of friction, for which I think the RBI's approval of 3DS 2.0 will be a big step. Because while two-factor authentication removes the hurdle of fear, it also creates a separate hurdle of friction. So we've got to find the right balance between the two. And then the fact that we have to build something around the customer behavior, which makes it a sustainable feature.
So Kaushik, from the offline merchant payments perspective, there is a huge demand for offline payment as well.
What is really important, if you want to get out of the whole cash cycle, is to really figure out on the merchant side of things what really helps. Because one of the great things with cash is it's instant gratification, right? Buyer pays cash, merchant gets it, instant gratification, consumer gets the product, goes home, right? It's that ecosystem. So yes, there is on the demand side, lot needs to be done. But at the end of the day, the merchant needs to be motivated to accept payment digitally. And if they can accept digitally and still run their business and grow and make it more efficient, I think that's really important.
So thanks a lot. Great discussion with all the panel members. Really thank you for you. And thanks a lot, audience.
We now move on to the panel discussion titled, The Race for the Most Innovative Solution. Manish, over to you.
Thanks a lot. India, the innovation, if you look at it, most of the innovation happened on the rail of payments and the credits. So, but metros, we have seen that what people have asked for the direct banking or various other innovations. But how about the rural and semi-urban also has come into this innovation space, and there is a demand and need from them as well.
I think one solution doesn't really fit all segments today. So while millennials would be more comfortable using the smartphone, there is also the very different segment of customer who is not on a smartphone. You also have customers who are not educated or not technically savvy. For innovation to succeed in this country, there are just two paths that I see as long-term solutions. One is technology, which is if something really path-breaking happens, like evolution of maybe 5G or phones becoming, all phones having NFC or something on those lines, which is more a technology level driven innovation. And the second, I think, is more about the psychology driven innovation, which is how do you educate your customer? How do you put away the fear factor in their minds to give them that comfort that mobility, or whether it is desktop or mobile, is all part of the same solution stack from banks, and it doesn't mean that it's more or less secure than ATMs. Sure, as technologists, we all know that they are more prone to attacks. But I think as our jobs as bankers, we have to make them equally strong.
So Sridhar, in terms of tokenization, NFC, how it will change evolve the whole game of the digital payments?
I think the next big wave will potentially come from NFC, at least in the world of payments. The top two things that come to people's mind is speed and convenience. Of course, security is there, but they're used to giving cash, so it's there somewhere in the back of their mind. But speed and convenience is the key. And that's where NFC scores very, very well. So transactions there take on an average, I think, between 4 to 12 seconds. That's the range. And compared to cash, which is 10 to 23 seconds. So significant in terms of speed. It's fairly convenient. You just need to whip out your card. And it plays out even for people like myself, because the moment I got a contactless card, that automatically became the first choice of my payment everywhere. So that's the kind of change that NFC will bring about. And one of the things we are doing already is working with several banks and the networks in tokenizing their cards. There is a huge opportunity for you to potentially take your plastic, which is not contactless, and tokenize it on the phone and pretty much make it a contactless transaction. What it does is primarily allow you to make micro payments on the phone. What will happen with contactless is all he'd have to do is tap and he'd pass by. And I think that's the huge delta that you will see. And I think the next big wave will really come when India goes contactless, either through the NFC card or the card on the file, card on the phone.
So Kushal, there is also a new concept of a soft card. How do that innovation will help?
One of the big advantages or innovations a soft card brings in some sense to the table is the ability to onboard a person who's not part of the structured credit ecosystem into that whole life cycle. So, simple availability of someone being able to get access to credit as a customer on Amazon or any other commerce site, or even in terms of, being able to buy a simple ticket and stuff like that. Now, I think there's a lot of work that's happening from the infrastructure side at a country level, from adoption of the smartphones, people becoming comfortable with transacting online. But there's an equal amount of innovation that also needs to happen on the financial ecosystem, banks, NBFCs, the entire ecosystem of credit institutions, of stack that they need to have available to easily do onboarding of a customer, credit decisioning, integrations to all of these merchants, payments, things of various data coming in, and the entire life cycle of a loan, which is being available through this soft card and empowering the user, being more comfortable against things like fraud and stuff. So I think there is a lot of innovation. I perceive that the construct like soft card and the associated software infrastructure that will come up within financial institutions can add a lot of value.
But one key challenge that is there in terms of identification is digital identity still a myth. So Deepak, what is your view about digital identity per se and how it is taking off?
I think digital identity, I would personally like to believe, is not a myth anymore. So there are two things that constitutes a digital identity. One is the information that the customer is presenting, and second is the information that is being captured through data. The building blocks are all there. So for example, I run a fintech startup, which is a lending company. Technically today, we have everything that's available that we can use to do a smart contract, signed digitally between a lender and a borrower, executed digitally in a paper-free format. But the legislation today does not allow us to do that or does not empower us to do that. So I think that digital identity is possible. It's more a question of legislation, which I think is only a function of time, in my opinion.
Some of the fintechs and some of the lending platforms, these things are coming online. I think in India, we ask much more data compared to what is really required to perform that particular transaction. And that's where the whole data privacy angle comes in. Harish, from your perspective in terms of European bank, how they've handled these kind of things?
For banks to innovate, the most important thing is banks should start thinking like fintechs, right? So what it means is two keywords for me. One is nimbleness and then the real time, right? So what I meant by nimble is organizationally, department-wise, are we organized in a way that we can deliver things really faster to the market, right? So that is point number one. Architecturally, are we simplified? Infrastructurally, are we resilient? So I think these three are extremely important when it comes to banks becoming like fintechs. The other thing is real time. So what I mean by real time is if, for example, a payment happens, whether it could be through ATM, a credit card, debit card, domestic cross-border, whatever it is. So the moment it happens, can any system within the bank get that payment information within like a second, right? So that kind of speed and resilience and real time, near real time, if that is possible in a bank, then the innovation can happen really quickly. The other thing is the open banking. So that is again a big game changer, and it has already happened in other European banks and things. So going back to the consent-based architecture, so this open banking has been really helpful in moving in that direction in the Nordic and European banks. So the moment the customer gives the consent, the bank can use the other bank's APIs to pull that, get that information and process that. So a lot of analytical models and predictive models have been built on that. And then the online mortgage digital platform I was talking about earlier today is also built on that. So the open banking has enabled that part of that.
Jimmy, your views in terms of open banking and how do you have seen those innovations in other geographies?
13 years ago, the UK was one of the first countries, Great Britain was one of the first countries to put in place a national real-time infrastructure. It enables fintech companies to come up to help the banks in order to provide new services connected to the current account. And then the open API into the bank system provides that secure, trusted capability of never lose a payment and to leverage the scale that the banks have of protecting that transaction. So I think we're going to see more and more fintech companies. We're going to continue seeing an explosion of new offerings into the marketplace, and then it's our responsibility in this room to ensure that secure, protected, trusted, scalable, stable backbone is there so no one ever loses a payment. So that's the maturation that you're going to see that's going to happen as we move through.
So with this, I'll conclude the panel discussion. Thank you so much.
And we now move on to the special address by Mr. V. Vaidyanathan, MD and CEO, IDFC First Bank.
It's a great pleasure to be here with all of you at the Economic Times Cards and Payments Summit 2019. I must just say that India has just crossed a very crucial landmark of having 500 million internet connections last year. Just 5 years ago, number of internet connections in India was 200 million. 200 million growing to 500 million in 5 years. I think that's an astonishing amount of infrastructure getting created. Similarly, you can draw the data points for mobile, you can see the data points for everything. It's just astonishing the amount of infrastructure or a digital infrastructure that has got created. As of today, 15% of Indians have a computer. But 40% of Indians already have a smartphone. So again, another example of saying how fast this sort of infrastructure is now growing. Now, in the last 1 year alone, India's population went up by 15 million people, but the mobile subscriptions went up by 32 million, number of internet users went up by 98 million, and number of active social media users went up by 60 million. You get the point. So thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. That's all I had to share with you this evening, and I hope that was useful to you. Thank you.
When ATMs were introduced for the first time, what we were told is ATMs will never take off in India. And especially in tier 2 cities and all, it's not going to happen, right? Those days I was in Adivaya Bank, we'd opened, in Patna, the first ATM to open was ours. And it was our most successful ATM. That's the thing with Indians that, we can jump technology generations like really rapidly, right? So that's one thing, the adoption of technology. And now on mobile banking, so many things, right? So that's one huge change that's happened. The second is the deepening of the banking ecosystem. We did do the bank nationalization in the in the 70s, and the aim was to get more and more unbanked people into the formal banking system. Honestly, it didn't really move as far ahead as it should have. But over the last few years, it has moved ahead dramatically. And not just in banking. I think what is happening with the formal payment channels that are coming in, through Amazon, through Flipkart, what is happening through that is you're setting up formal payment records of various people. What I see happening over time is you can leverage that to give credit, right? To give small credit. So many people who are unbanked, who had no access to small credit, are being pulled into the financial ecosystem because of a really brilliant and strong technology drive that has happened. And this has been transformational. And I don't think the banking sector gets enough credit for this. We've got the basic things in place to really leapfrog. And I hope we leapfrog. I'm a very patriotic Indian. I want to see India take its rightful place in the Committee of Nations. So this is a critical piece in the suite of things that we need to do to make that jump into a developed economy. I'm glad the banking sector has broadly delivered.